This is Jessica
And this is Kelly. And this is the Chasing Brighter
podcast. Hi, everybody. Today, Kelly and I would like to talk with you about kids and electronics.
Yes. Yeah, this is always a hot topic. It's amazing how much the information has changed. Or if you Google this, you can find endless articles. The most recent, like somebody's writing something on this multiple times a day at this point. There's not a right answer, right, Jess?
Yeah, screens are everywhere. Phones, tablets, ebooks, computers, handheld game systems. It's nearly impossible to keep screens away from our children. It can be really beneficial and positive. And so we just wanted to talk about our struggles, talk about systems that we've set up to try to keep our kids healthy and safe, and maybe give you some ideas on something that might work for you. And we'd love to hear from you. Let us know if we missed something and there's something that you use with your kids that you find that really
works.
helpful. Be awesome.
Yeah. So tune in.
So we started school this week. Now I have a high schooler.
Oh, yeah. That's coming up for us too.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to say about having a high schooler. It's very crazy.
Well, can we talk just real quick about your, how is it getting them to school today? I know it was a little bumpy yesterday.
I'm overwhelmed. I actually can't complain. I watched the news today and there was another charter school that it took parents 2 hours for pickup. And our pickup is pretty seamless, but it's just like there's more traffic. And so normally it takes us 12 to 13 minutes to get to school. And now it takes 16 to 17 and it's very congested. So today we left like 12 minutes earlier than yesterday. And then I did a different drop-off spot and they were all very happy with the drop-off spot. So everybody got to school very early today. And Dominic's in middle school now and Gio's in elementary. And Gio this morning was like, I wish Dominic could still go to school with me.
Is it just a huge campus?
Oh, you mean just as far as trying to get in there?
Yeah.
I think there's a good amount of kids that walk. It's just, it's very difficult to describe, but there's just like, to get near the school, once you turn in that area, you're like in that area and you can't get out.
Okay.
And it's not the best area in the world.
Yeah.
So, but Kids Bike they're like, it's like brand new homes and then older homes. And so I think Dominic's friend biked to school one day, but we're way too far. I don't know about other people. We're way too far to bike. But anyway, so that's been the thing. Interesting. I felt terrible. We were very late yesterday. It wasn't us. It was traffic. Just completely unexpected traffic. It normally takes us, like I said, 15 minutes to get there. It took us like 35, 40 minutes to get there. So just felt terrible. You know, that feeling of being late and being rushed but that was their first day of middle school, first day of high school, and then them being late. They weren't marked tardy, but you know, Gabby is like you and she doesn't want like anyone to look at her. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Were you late? And she goes, everyone was looking at me when I walked in. And she said it was like the classroom was just full of kids. And she said she had to like climb over someone and she stepped on their backpack. And Dominic's just different and doesn't care doesn't really care as much. Like he said, he was, there were people that came in after him because there were a lot of kids who were late because it was just unexpected. But
well, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm sorry that happened to them.
Yes, but we did a meditation. I think after we did the meditation, the Reiki meditation with Jana, I felt so much better. And also I was able to text them. They can have their phones during lunch. And I was able to text and
check in on both of them.
Were you marked tardy or, whatever. And it's good that Gabby didn't respond to me at all because that means she's talking to her friends and having fun and
has already forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Do you think in some ways, as we get older, things are weightier than they are as kids? Like kids shake stuff off where we like it tends to stay with us as baggage. You know what I mean? Like,
I would say when it comes to our kids, like because that was my fault and I put them in that situation. Well, I know it's my fault, but I mean, ultimately it's my fault. Like when you're the boss, ultimately it's on you, right? I mean, that was on me. And so I think
yeah, but like it sat with you like for a longer period of time versus them.
Guilt.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Because I think it had to do with my kids. For myself, I'm late. To things. I get behind with my schedule at work quite a bit. And it's just like, I'm behind. It happens. What are you going to do? I think for me, it's okay when it impacts other people. That sits with me a long time.
Yeah. How about you? Too, for sure. Tons.
Yeah. And you don't start school till next week.
Yep. This is our final week.
Change. Boys are going to a different school.
A new school. Yeah. They're very excited. They're just excited about the superficial things, mostly like no uniforms. And my 7th grader is under the impression there's no homework. So that's good. Whatever we can do to convince them to move schools.
Well, it's so interesting because, and they're going to be going to public school, right?
Yes.
And I was editing the Untamed book club for August, and I'm so happy for you because you'll have to check it out, Kel, once it's edited, to hear a lot of like stress for you. Like, and part of the podcast, it was like, oh, this is so great. They go to Catholic school. And then there was some stuff that was like, let me tell you about the school my kids are going to. Like it's funny. You can feel the vibe, which obviously led to you guys making a choice to send your kids to a different school. But I think we can listen to the evolution of our life by going back and listening to podcasts.
Oh yeah. Right.
What headspace we were in at that time.
Oh my gosh. Definitely still trying to come out of that bad mental place. So my kids have, a couple more days of brain rotting. How is it for your kids? Speaking of, today's topic, which is kids and electronics. And when I think about kids and electronics, I really think about kids and video games and kids and like gaming stuff. But that's because that's a lot of where my kids are. Every age is different. But how is it for your kids making that transition?
Well, and that's interesting. Like when I said that they can have their phones during lunch, and I was asking them about their school policy, which is interesting. They cannot have their phones in their back pockets. Like their phone has to be in their backpack at all times, and they can only be on their phone during lunch. So that's interesting.
Okay.
And great. I'm happy about that. And so I was telling them even during school, I was telling Dominic, a couple of your friends don't have phones, so I don't want you on your phone at lunch. You should be, talking to them and interacting with your friends. For me, electronics is everything. Like to me, too much of anything isn't good, right? So like if I had a kid that was obsessed with the TV show and binge watching, I would be concerned with that. Right now I have concerns with my 7-year-old and YouTube. So mine isn't necessarily video games. It's like a tablet, a screen, a phone, an app, anything that I feel like they're kind of addicted to. Yeah. And that makes me concerned about it. So it's kind of any type of screen.
Well, and I feel like, and everyone will say, but I mean, COVID definitely changed the dynamics so much with, I think, the attitude towards screens and just the fact that everybody resorted to them and it became more acceptable. And now it's trying to figure out how to work within that. Also, our kids. The kids were on screens a lot more. They're on, when we were touring the new school, the principal was like, we're trying to because the 3rd graders get Chromebooks. And she said, we're really trying to actually reduce, screens and trying to pull away from it more, just because that's all that they were on. And so it's a very normal thing for them versus trying to just interact with people.
Well, and for social skills, I mean, we do know kids were negatively impacted for social skills. And Dominic in 6th grade is in a new class. And it is called Claws. And I was asking, is that a new class for 6th graders? And they were like, yeah, we were noticing kids were coming back and they were noticing some really negative social interactions and kids lagging a little bit in what was expected of them socially. So they have a new class, caring, leader, accountability, willing, safe. So that's interesting. That's what Claws stands for. But so
what's their mascot?
To that.
Is that
what?
Do they have a mascot that's like a?
We
something
do.
that
We're
has claws?
cougars.
Okay,
So that
that's
all
cool.
goes
That ties.
together.
Thank you.
Kelly,
I was just
yes.
concerned. Hopefully, you weren't
There
like
was it was obviously a woman.
the knights or something, and I'd be like claws.
But yeah, I think I've always been concerned about screens because I noticed Dominic, who is 11 now, used to be on whatever. Let's say it was a Kindle, let's say it was Nintendo, whatever he was on when he was little. And then we would have like behavioral problems. And, you know, I was an adolescent therapist for a while, for a good 15 years. And I would see there are just certain kids and certain personalities that it's like when they're playing a video game, it's like it's like they leave reality for a little bit and then they have a hard time coming back. So I think there's like certain personalities and certain kids that when they're on a screen too much, there's like behavioral problems. And so that started when Dominic was like 4. And so at those times I was very limited, like you can get 20 minutes at a time. Like I was just very limited timing him. And I just never had those concerns for Gabby. And for Dominic, for Giovanni, his is YouTube. He wants YouTube all the time. He wants to watch people play Minecraft. And it used to be unboxing videos, but now it's watching people build Minecraft worlds. So those are our struggles with screens right now. How about for you?
Well, I think it goes back to everything in moderation. And my kids would love to just watch YouTube all day. They're only allowed to watch it Wednesdays and Saturdays is what we limit on YouTube. So it's like, again, I think this goes back to the purpose of today's topic being like what challenges we face, how we're muddling through it and getting through it. There's no right answer. I think you have to figure out what works for you. And sometimes you evolve, right? I have a friend who just shut off YouTube completely. I tried to, I've uninstalled it. And then the kids reinstalled it on our smart TVs. And we have Sony Bravia smart TVs. I don't know what other people have, but there's not a mature, I shouldn't say mature because that's probably not the product maturity. If anybody who's a product manager out there of TVs it's not there. So I have YouTube set to be password protected on one TV, and they can, if you access a YouTube show from the shortcuts on the homepage, it bypasses that. So if you open up the YouTube app, you have to enter it. But if you just pick a clip from YouTube, it gets you in. So like none of that stuff is working properly. So I've been one of those where I've really tried to let other things police it so I don't have to. And those things always fall short for me. In general, my kids love to video game for different reasons. Beckett, who is 8, can go into the Roblox, like, I don't know, black hole for hours, not move his body, and can just spend just a ridiculous amount of time in there. And that's not appropriate. I notice his behavior changes. I notice he gets more hyperactive. And so part of it for me has just been paying attention to my kids. And at that age, they can't regulate. Right, Jess? I mean, that's the hard part is kids aren't old enough to regulate, some of them.
I love what you were saying in the Part 2 Untamed podcast, that you notice that your kids, when they play video games, it's not filling their cup. Like it's something that they enjoy doing, but you're noticing. So it's like noticing, I think for anyone, it's like noticing the behavior, and then I'm concerned about their behavior. And so like we said, okay, you don't get to have it. So we try to not allow it, or we set up time limits around it. Or what we're doing right now with Giovanni and YouTube is he earns YouTube time. He has to do certain things to earn YouTube time, practice piano, play board game, just have a balance of different time.
Yeah.
And then I want someone in the same room with him. Yeah. And like I've had friends I know that on YouTube, you can just click, and then all of a sudden be watching something completely like adult content, completely inappropriate. For a long time, Giovanni was able to have YouTube Kids. But now we just, he has to work to earn YouTube time. And then someone has to be in the room with him. So we are monitoring what he's watching.
So now what I have done, let's just hit on some other topics. And really, I think, we can, I didn't include this too much previously when I was doing my research, but one of the things I do is all of our YouTubes across our house are all logged into my Gmail account so that I know what's being watched. And then I have it set to restricted mode so that they can't do the content stuff, which is very annoying sometimes when I'm trying to, like watch how to install a dishwasher, something or other, right? And I'll be like restricted mode and I have to like turn it off. That's pretty easy to do. And I don't know if I just don't know what people are and aren't aware of, but I find that turning on restricted mode does block the mature content. Plus, I've only allowed my kids to watch shows from people that we subscribe to. If you've ever watched The Social Dilemma, again, part of this is, that's why I think, government wise or advocates are really pushing for the government to do things about like punishing Facebook and Google or setting some sort of accountability because
they're collecting data and creating algorithms.
Yeah, the whole social media part is like, I've told the kids, like if you watch a show and then it shows the recommended, that's going to set you down a rabbit hole of stuff that's going to force you to do things because they think you like it. And I was like, I'm always like, go back to the main menu. Don't ever watch the recommended, only go to your subscribed.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm trying to teach the kids. I also don't allow, everyone's different, right? I don't allow my kids to watch TikTok. Like Wes is not allowed on TikTok. I just recently installed the app for myself, but he's not allowed to do. He can do Snapchat, which I know there's not a lot of monitoring on, but it seems more benign to me because you're only talking to people that you know, or I monitor that part.
I think, and you talk about COVID, Gabby was able to Gabby got TikTok because that was how she connected with her cousins from Kansas. That's how she was connecting with friends. It was making videos and connecting. And then I've disabled TikTok. Dominic is able to get TikTok because my husband, their father, sends them TikToks, at least 2 TikToks a day. And then he's able to get on it and like it says like add a minute. I don't know how he's getting on it. I'm still troubleshooting on how.
But you have to do like what you're comfortable with, right? And if you're
right. Or like Roblox, Dominic got Roblox because of COVID, because we were on lockdown and I did not allow Roblox. Dominic was allowed to have Roblox. Giovanni still not Roblox because that's a social media. To me, that's a social media game. To me, if you can interact, that's social.
There are chat windows in that. Like you really have to monitor your kids or know what.
And so Gio's not allowed to have it. Dominic is allowed to have it. And so I think it's knowing your kid. I do have different rules for different kids. And Gabby, Dominic is a kid that could get on a computer and sit there for 12 hours. And then when you would say, get off, he would say, I just got on, and have no idea, like with any screen. So he's the one I notice more behavioral stuff with, that I really, really have to be on everything for him. And then for Giovanni, he just doesn't, because Dominic has a phone now. And so for Giovanni, he doesn't have a phone. So he has to ask permission to do anything. So it's easier to monitor. Right. When I worked with kids who are therapists, I saw worst case scenario. Gabby got Snapchat at like 13 because she was crying to her dad because her team had all these inside jokes and everyone was on the same loop or whatever. And she had no idea what was happening. And so she was missing out on some things. I saw so much stuff happening with bullying and screenshots and crazy stuff with Snapchat and Instagram that I was really pretty cuckoo about it. And then Gabby was able to get Instagram for, she can have a private account when she turned 14. But she has to do stuff for softball to kind of create a resume and promote herself, and for coaches to see her and stuff. And so again, I'm not fully comfortable with everything, but it's hard, right? You have to do with what you're comfortable with, what is expected, what other parents are doing, what is in your ability to monitor. right? I mean, we can't, like you're saying, like I'm trying to get Dominic's computer with parental programs and restrictions and it wasn't working. And it's like, well, I don't have time to watch a 2-hour video on how to do it. So I'm gonna have to set that aside and get back to it another time. It's just like things are happening so fast. It's hard to always stay on top of it.
Oh yeah. And for Wes, he has a phone. So he is 12 now. He has a phone and an iPad, and then he has, PS4 for gaming too. And they both kids use iPads to do Minecraft and Roblox. Wes found a way to pair the PS4 controller to his iPad. So like, that's the only way he like games on his iPad. I installed parental controls on all of their devices. And at one time I was like super locked down because our internet router, you could shut down the internet on devices. And so I would just like shut stuff down. You could schedule, you could do all the things. And then I added parental controls onto that, which then created a lot of like things getting shut down. It was way too much. I didn't know what I was doing. Since then, I've just really played around with a lot of the parental controls apps and things, but that's for really Apple devices more than anything. When I was installing some of these, it would be great. It was working for a while, especially as school started, right? Because they're going to come home and they're working on things, or maybe they even need their devices to like do homework and stuff. But I wanted to limit them on other apps. And so I added parental controls, which works for a while. And all of a sudden it would be like, Wes's iPhone's not checking in. It hasn't connected in like a week. And now I'm like, that's weird. And then I found out he was just deleting all the parental control apps that I was installing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of like what I was alluding to, right? Like it's almost a full-time job to stay on top of the apps and know and have the tech smarts and tech savvy to do all that stuff. And so sometimes I'm like old school and I just take the device, right? So like,
that's what you have to do.
Yeah. So sometimes we'll go on like a diet where it's like everyone put everything in. For summer, I take all the TV remotes and I take the phones and tablets and I hide them, and they have to send me videos that they did their chores. And then I'll tell them where I hid them. I'm sure a super savvy
I hide stuff,
click buttons and
I hide stuff all the time, Jess. Like I have infinite hiding places. Things. Yeah. Right. Oh, I hide stuff all the time. I just have to remember where I put them.
Yeah, but that's like super old school, right? And I think really it's more about balance. Are they getting outside? Are they exercising? Are they socializing? Are they being creative? Are they doing other things? And if they have a balance of interacting with other children and doing other things, then I think, you can allow that in a way that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, what makes your kid happy, like truly happy, bringing them joy, being in tune with that, going back to Untamed, right? And taking that and then just monitoring if what they're doing is bringing them joy or ultimately, causing frustration. How many times have your kids gotten frustrated and were crying and like throw the iPad down on the ground because they couldn't figure something out? And that's not bringing them joy. That's they're feeling something that they're processing that's not good. That absolutely should not be, that can't be good for them if they're getting angry and doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that happens, I think, kind of depending, but I think you are too, but I'm pretty pro technology, but like if that weren't happening with the iPad, they would be throwing the Uno deck or flipping over the chessboard, or, like some of that is also developmental. Like you're talking about emotionally regulating. I think every child learns that kind of at a different speed. When you asked earlier about Beckett, and I think that's important too. And if we're just like leaving it up to the device to shut down or not really physically monitoring in the same room as them, we're not going to know if they're freaking out or screaming or mad or whatever. And so I also like to have, like their phones. Gabby's has different rules now because she's at a different stage in life.
Right.
But Dominic's phone has to stay downstairs. Things have to be downstairs. He can't go in his room and close the door and have a tablet or anything like that. Like things need to be out in the open. And then I try to go over, we've talked a little bit before, but over search history. Like, are they looking up sexual things? Are they looking up things that are concerning self-harm, suicidal things, searching their browser history, and asking if they have any questions, talking about it. We had some scares with browser history. And so it's more like, if you have any questions, come to us. Who can you go to with questions? We can't just Google something and think that that's the right answer. We have to make sure that we have some trusted sources that aren't just Google. Who are your trusted sources? And so we've had those conversations too.
Yeah, great points. And, one of the things that you guys, if you read our blog post after if you listen to this episode, one of the articles we refer to is, I really like the article from the New York Times, and I reference it in the post, which is how and when to limit your kids' technology. And it really it provides some guidelines in different age brackets that I thought were really appropriate, because it takes the groupings was under 2 to 5, 6 to 12, and teenagers, which I think are the right groupings, because my kids are between the 6 to 12 age. And so they're very, very similar in terms of what we're doing. But I agree, like Gabby's a teenager, right? And so you have to hold them accountable so they can learn and kind of self-police ultimately, right? I mean, that's part of what you want to do.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to be mindful of our children's media use, and mindful of, like you're saying, TikTok, you don't like TikTok, because you're mindful of that and that how it impacts your kids. I have a friend, they were noticing their daughter having like an increase in anxiety and depression, and they took off TikTok. Huge difference, right? Like different apps.
That's differently. I agree. I think monitoring those things is really important.
You know what I mean? Like know what they're watching and how they're watching it, and noticing, hey, you know what? We introduced a first person shooter game, and now my child seems more aggressive. Maybe we need to reduce that. And, we're the parent. You're the parent. And if you say no, take it away. And if they scream, oh, well, I listened
to an article that said, like, I don't use any parental controls and I don't limit my kids' technology and everything's fine. It's deeper than that. So in that article I read, the woman was like, I make my kids go outside. They're at day camp all day. Well, yeah. I mean, if your kids are outside at day camp all day, then, you're already kind of setting limits. So I think, anything you have to figure out what works for you. I think we've always, we advocate for people to seek their own information, right? And go out
Absolutely.
there. And I think a lot of what we want to do is provide that.
Yeah. And I think we work from home. You and I work from home. And so in the summer, our kids are home, or when school's out, they're home. And so I think when you're a parent who has all these responsibilities at home, you can't always be watching everything they're doing, and they're going to be going and on electronics and things like that. I mean, that's our situation. Right. And so that's why we are trying to set up all of these parental controls, because the way that things are set up, we don't always have eyes on our children necessarily. Right.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I also think, just you don't have to do any of that. Just take it away, have them go outside, do all of these other things.
So maybe we should just kind of quickly talk through some of our recommendations or just ideas we had as ways as people are continuing to sort of sort through what works for them.
Yes. One of my favorites, I probably said this 10 times, was, have them only allow screens in rooms where they can be monitored, and consider making bedrooms technology-free zones.
Yep. I think that's a great one. Another one is disabling web from your child's device, which is something I do. There's a lot of ways to do that, but you can block search engines. You can also just in general block adult content and whatnot as well.
Yeah. And like I've said, we set timers for devices, we can all lose track of time and get sucked into devices, screens, social media. So just setting timers. We use a smart speaker. We set timers all the time.
Having them earn time for their devices is another one. I think you guys use that a little bit, right? I don't do that as much anymore.
They have to, it's like balanced. Reading 30 minutes equals 30 minutes of screen time. Not really, but you know what I mean? It's like you have to practice piano, do your chores, do all of these things. And then, Gio will run down. How can I earn more YouTube time? How can I earn more YouTube time? And that's an opportunity. Okay, let's read. Let's do flashcards. We have to do a craft. We have to go do jumping jacks, right? And so he's conditioned that it's not like automatic, that he doesn't get to just wake up and watch YouTube. He has to kind of earn it. And, I think like considering no devices during school night.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's a big one for us too. I think the kids are expecting that to happen, which is why they like want to race home on Fridays, because they know they can get back on things.
Yeah. And like we've talked about, just considering parental control apps. We use Apple Screen Time, and we do have the Nintendo Switch parental controls. There are I've had friends that have Circle. There's a program called Bark
and Custodio. And I've used all three of those. And I really like Custodio the best. I think a lot of the parental control apps, and we're talking about apps that you either install on Apple and or Android devices. So it's just that. So like gaming consoles, totally different. Like there's no one size fits all unless you have a Wi-Fi system like Xfinity. You could pay $5 a month and you could have these controls. You could just shut off Wi-Fi in your house, which was really, I thought that was awesome. But we just recently switched that up. But all those parental controls have a lot of different pluses and minuses. There's a lot of trials. Just try stuff out, see what you like. But again, it's a lot. It ends up being a kind of a full-time job just to manage all that stuff.
But I think, that tablets, phones, technology is amazing. But I think it's just important that we recognize that it's a health issue, right? That for our children's health, that we monitor their use and create improved systems to keep them safe.
Yep. Well said. And with great power comes great responsibility, which is also part of, I think, our job as parents.
Totally. Thanks for listening and joining us today.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Chasing Brighter or on our blog, chasingbrighter.com.